So I have to share this insight that I had because this morning, with my intention, part of my intention that I recorded here was about not accepting the emotions of others, to be aware of what I'm feeling, and to also be aware that there is the collective energy and emotion of others around us. And if we're not careful and aware of it, it can cause us to succumb to the emotions that others are feeling. So I have a really interesting story how spirit it's so funny because when you become aware, and this is why it's so important for me to do these videos, because there's tons of videos on here that aren't even accessible to anybody. I do this so that I can capture what I'm learning, and how I'm growing. I do it for me. And if somebody else can benefit from it, great, right? So anyway, it's so interesting because today that was what I intended to be aware of. And yesterday I had a great example of how I became aware of it. But today I experienced it in another way. And I think this is a lesson. I realize that this is a lesson and that I'm learning this because it's going to help me in next steps of what is the plan for my life. And I'm keeping that really close to the chest just because I don't think it belongs to everybody. And I don't need everybody's opinion in it yet, because it's not important and it will just take me off focus. So anyway, let me just tell you what happened. So I was having a talk. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is about oneness and helping people understand how we need to participate in actively creating the world that we want to live in. And that doesn't mean that we force certain actions on other people. What we really need to do is do our inner work that helps us to focus on how we are contributing, how we're not always working towards the same goal that we say we want. For example, this isn't my example. This isn't what I'm going through, but let's say, for example, there are people who say, I really want to be healthy and lose weight. Same said people will go to Krispy Kreme and buy a dozen donuts and eat 3. Okay? First of all, I'm not judging. Do what my philosophy is, do what makes you happy, right? But the thing is when we say one thing and then our behavior doesn't line up with that one thing, either we're not aware that our behavior is not lining up with that thing, or so we're unaware of how we are not in alignment with what we say we want, or we don't really want it, right? And so I believe that I want a world where that is just and fair, and everyone has value. Everyone's value is the same, and no one has to justify for how they show up in the world. That we understand that we are all extensions of Source, we're all extensions of God, and that we need to not give more importance to someone, more value to someone based upon many different reasons that we give. It could be race, it could be socioeconomic status, it could be gender, it could be religion, right? We all do it. And so what we need to do is do this inner work that allows us to expose our behaviors that are not in alignment with what we say we want, so that we can align with what we say we want and we can live it out, and other people will see that and they will see how to do it and they'll follow suit, and then we will see the world change. But it really starts with us, right? So I'm having this discussion with a group of people. It's like 4 of them. And I'm talking about this in the context of race. And I make a statement, which it wasn't offensive at all. And it's something that I've been living with for a couple months, something that, has been revealed to me, something that I'm writing about and I'm going to be presenting later on in the year in June, which I'm really excited about. And so I shared this and I realized it's really heavy. Now it's heavy. Okay. And this was the first time that they heard it. And what happened was, all of a sudden, I literally felt like I was in a cyclone where I couldn't get my bearing. Like, I felt very squirrely. I just felt like I couldn't get my bearing, and that I had somehow said something that was wrong. And so I'm trying to dig myself out of this pit of what I said that was wrong, that offended somebody. It was overwhelming. And then I rambled on for a little bit because I'm trying to find my way out, and I couldn't find my way out. And then finally I just said something and I stopped. And it was overwhelming to me. And it kind of shook me for a while. And I was like, wow, I just blew that. I don't even know how I blew that. Like, I just blew it though, And so I decided to talk to some friends about it. So I was sending them like a video message, and I'm recanting what happened and what I said, thinking, maybe they would hear something that I said that maybe was the thing that triggered the squirreliness. I don't know. And while I'm recanting the story, I realize that those emotions that I was feeling, that swirl of confusion that I was enveloped in, was not my own. It wasn't mine. There was nothing that I said that was off base. There was nothing that I said that was wrong. I was just very extremely, excruciatingly sensitive to the shift that was happening in the energy in the people in the room. And so there was confusion going on. There were all of these emotions, and I was swimming in them. And what I realized was now, and I'm so excited that this happened. And this is how Holy Spirit works. You ask and it is given, right? So another part of my intention for the day, I don't know if I shared this on YouTube, but another part of my intention for the day was for me to be in receiving mode, for me to be able to see what God sees, what the Spirit sees, because it's always happening around us. We're just not receptive to it. And so I wanted to be wowed by what the presence sees and feels and encounters throughout the day. And I wanted to experience that. So, So that happened. And as I'm recounting it on the video to my friends, I say, wow, I realize why that happened. Because I have a very important talk that I'm going to be delivering in June of this year. I'm really excited about it. And I'm going to be sharing some of the things that I shared with them. And I need to understand, first of all, that the energy that goes along in the room, it cannot shake me. That I need to be aware of it, but I'm aware of it for a reason. And the reason is this, so that I can address it. Because when you are say, for example, you put your hand on the fire, on a stove, right? And, or not on the stove, right? But above the stove. You can feel whether the stove is on or whether it's off, right? You can't cook. You can't cook with any heat, right? And so knowing whether the stove is on or off, say your knobs are broken, you know whether the stove is on or off, and you address what is happening. And so what I realize that I need to do in those moments, first of all, I need to be aware that when things like that happen, that's not my emotion. Check in with myself, know that it's not my emotion, know that it's the emotions that are happening in the room. And then I need to address it. So how I could have, stopped myself from being overwhelmed by the swirl of emotion is really have a moment and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to stop right here for a second because I'm sensing that someone may have feel triggered by something I said. Someone may be confused by something I said, and name the emotions that I sense, that I feel, that I'm experiencing, so that they can be addressed, because emotional intelligence is so important, and it is what helps us to grow, right? Because when we feel those lower level emotions like confusion, fear, worry, doubt, we're contracting. We are not learning. We are not growing. But when we are in acceptance, when we are allowing, when we are at peace, we are expanding. And so when I sense that someone is contracting, me as a person who is an empath, who is a bridge, who is a healer, especially when I'm given the permission or the request to lead someone, that I need to acknowledge those feelings that I'm feeling, that they're feeling. And that's what helps us to move forward. So my eyes, now my eyes always run, so nobody, this isn't anybody else's issue. I'm not crying. But yeah, I felt like that was it was so powerful, and it was so, it was part of the lesson that I was learning yesterday. It was like, it was kind of like I got the, yesterday I got the study guide and today I got the test, right? And so, not that I failed the test, that was the open book test. And now there's going to be other opportunities where I get to show that I've mastered that awareness, that I've mastered the ability to be in situations where someone is experiencing emotion, and because I am in their vicinity, I am seeing, sensing their emotion, and how I can navigate not owning their emotion, taking their emotion as a visitor in the room and addressing the visitor, and assisting whoever it is in reaching a higher level of vibration, a higher level of understanding, a higher level of awareness. So I just kind of wanted to share that because it was, the more I think about it, the more powerful it is that, one, I asked for that. Well, one, I was given an insight yesterday. Two, I shared that insight and I committed to being intentional about that insight. Three, I experienced it in a different way. And four, I received the insight on how I could have better handled that situation. And it was all in a very safe, a very safe atmosphere. So I know there's going to be more lessons and I'm excited about it. And I'm excited about, mastering this. And it's funny because the last thing, it's funny too, because after I told my friend about it, she went through the same exact thing. She went through the same exact thing, but in a different way. So someone was frustrated and she was fine. She was happy. She was frustrated. No, somebody was frustrated. They came to her. They brought her their frustration to her. She took on their frustration and then became frustrated, angry, and then it snatched her all. It snatched her. You know what I mean? We can't allow other people's emotions to snatch us. And when we are in alignment, we don't meet people where they are. We either make them come up to us, or we remain in two different fields. They can be on their little salty, level, their little salty level of emotion. And we can remain where we know that we're aligned and we're, walking in our purpose and fulfilling our purpose and the design for our lives, because coming down to their level is no longer an option.